This is your video for Accentuate the Negative Investigation 1.3, where there are two learning targets. One is to define and solve for absolute value, and the second is to use a number line to determine distances between numbers. The previous video would have given you the information for absolute value, how to notate it, as well as how to solve it. So the first part of your note should already be completed. So this video, I need you to jump to distances between integers on a number line. I'm going to continue with the example that the book used where a person goes from an extremely hot temperature to an extremely cold temperature. So question 1 says the person goes from a 115 degree sauna to an outside temperature of negative 30 degrees. What is the change in temperature? All right, so the first thing to do to use your number line is to place those temperatures on your number line, treating them as an integer. So the first one we have is 115 degrees. Put our dot at 115. And the second integer we have representing temperature is negative 30. So we'd put that dot. Then we want to go back to the top part of our notes or the previous video and think about absolute value, where I like to go the distance from the negative number to 0. So what is the distance or the absolute value of negative 30? Well, I would have a distance of 30. The absolute value of negative 30 is 30. Then I would look at the second half of that. What is the absolute value of 115? Or what is the distance from 0 to 115? That is 115. If I want to look at the combined distances from negative 30 to 115, I would simply add my two absolute values together, 30 plus 115, giving me a total distance of 145. So that means what is the change in temperature? Well, I'd have 145 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's a great way to visually show on a number line the distances between values and the change between two numbers. All right, let's look at our next example. The temperature reading on a thermometer is 25 degrees Fahrenheit at noon. During the afternoon, the temperature changes. What is the new reading for each temperature change? Well, the first thing is to make sure that we place our starting dot at 25 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a much smaller number line, so instead of placing a dot, I'm actually going to just work with a line. So 25 degrees. Then I want to start at point A. It rises 10 degrees, so if it's rising, I'm going to move off to the right 10 degrees. Just going to place me right at 35. So if after rising, I'm at 35 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I need to drop 2 degrees. So I'm starting at 35 and I have to go down 2 degrees. So now I'm at 33 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I have to fall another 30 degrees. So I'm going to start at my orange and go down 30 degrees. So I'm going to move towards the left. That's going to bring me to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. And you could do that by counting each one of those black tick marks, which represents an integer. All right, number 3. What is the change in temperature when the thermometer reading moves from the first temperature listed to the second temperature. First thing that I want you to do is to draw 4 number lines that we can use to show that, because doing it on one number line gets a little crazy. They can be very simple, and you do not have to count by ones. We're using the range basically from -20 up to a +20 between those two 4. So for A, it's always good to have 0, which is kind of that neutral middle ground. For A, it looks like I'm going from 20, so there's 10, there's 20, and then I need -10, -20. So I'm going to do the number and its opposites. So let's start with A. I need to place a dot at 20 degrees and a dot at -10. So let's go back to this idea of absolute value. From -10 to 0, that has a distance of 10. From 0 to 20 has a distance or an absolute value of 20. Put those two together, I have a total distance of 30, or a temperature change of 30 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, B, once again, -20 and 10, or excuse me, -10, so be +10 and a +20. This one I'm going from -20 to 10. So I'm going to put my 2 dots at -20 and -10. And I need the distance between them. So distance, we always talk about it being a positive number. So the amount of numbers between -20 and -10 happens to be 10. There's 10 numbers between those two. So that means that there is a change of 10 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, draw your number lines and add your numbers. See if you can get an answer for C and D. And once you do that, play back your video and see if you match what I have. All right, take a look. I know it does still get a little crazy with 4 number lines there, but see if you came up for part C, that you have a 10-degree change, and then for D, that you have a 30-degree change. Notice that it has not mattered whether we're going up or down in temperature. Since we're talking about the distance between these numbers, or the amount of change, that the value has remained positive in each one of these. All right, the last question is more of a thinker question, where what might be a strategy that you can use to find the differences of 2 different numbers. One of them that we have used in these notes is the number line. But is there a different strategy that you can think of that might be helpful? If so, bring that and we'll discuss it in class.